The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, welcome to the weekly Noyantis Usergroup meeting. So today is Monday, 21st of May, 2018. As always, if anyone's got any questions, queries or ideas or updates and so on and so forth, then feel free to raise your hand, we'll get the mics open and we'll cover the particular subjects. So, okay, but before we start, I've got a question in already. I think the question might be to do with regarding an update, but let's have a quick look. Where are we? Very first one. Want an update on the template enhancements. This is off Kevin. Kevin, let's open the mic. Rather rude of me, sorry. Hi Kevin, your mic's open in case you've got one.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're there.
Yeah, hi, it's been a while. With daylight savings, your meeting starts at 8 o'clock and I forget.
It's caught me out a couple of times in the past. John will testify to that. I've had an email off John and Arnold saying, where are you? But yes, basically updates. There's been a few different updates over the last few weeks/months now, and we've got quite a lot. Some have been released, mainly Chillcat stuff and little minor updates. Chillcat, there's a couple of us working on the Chillcat templates. That's why that gets a lot of attention, because there's a lot of classes to do. As for the others, that really falls on my shoulders to keep consistency and so on and so forth at the moment. And yes, there's a number of updates all in progress. On the report control, which is the one that you're interested in, some of the work has been done, still not been released actually, which I could do a partial release and just take a couple of prompts out, or for the sake of like a day's commitment to it, I could probably get some of the stuff knocked on the head as well. So it's this judgment call, and I do apologise for the massive delay which there has been. It's just, quite honest here, we're juggling quite a few things, which is good from the business point of view, but it's not good from getting updates out and so on and so forth.
I hear you have a new employee, so that should take some of the burden off.
That's it, yes. But of course, you know yourself, another pair of hands. You've got to get trained up in the first place, and that takes a little time as well. But yes, basically, it will help, and the proof of that already is the Chillcat. The Chillcat classes have already had loads of work. They're primarily doing the class work on that. They've already had loads of work and loads of updates out. And there must be, oh crikey, there must be 10 or 11 classes waiting for my approval before they go into the product as well. So there's lots of updates on that particular one. So yeah, so basically lots on that, and you're seeing very little on the others. There's updates going into the products all the time, because I might notice something, or I might think, well, that's a blatant mission which we should have had. There was one the other day, it was in the report control actually, and I can't remember what it was, but basically I was using it for a particular project and I could see a blatant omission. I desperately think what it was. It was literally, I think, last Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. So I quickly added it, dropped it in there. So there are little updates which go in there all the time. But what we will do is we'll get you an update next Monday. So if you're here next Monday, it might not be the full one you're after, but at least it will be some progress, because I know you've got some things in there for the date times and so on, which are all done. And some other changes which I definitely know was of interest to yourself. So by all means,
so you're still committed to putting in those functions that we spoke about months ago?
Yes, well that's it. So some of them are and some aren't. There was one which will require a bit of probably one of these sessions actually. We've already got some questions planned for today, but if we pencil it in for next Monday's webinar, it's the one where you blatantly get an overlap. So we're reading the plan is, if you remember rightly, you've got the blocks on the time. If I've got this remembering it correctly, you've got the time bar, the track bar, view. You've got your blocks, and as long as they're all, at least no clashes, one goes on to the next, goes on to the next. As long as all those flow, then great. It's where we want to be able to put the data in and find a particular clash, even maybe at the ad time, and it's that particular bouncing those ideas around. It's not particularly hard to do. I can very easily go and scan the control at runtime, grab the start and end, build basically a data queue internally to the class, and report back the particular clashes. It's what we want to do with that. So, i.e., do you want to automatically add a second row for that? So let's say the particular resource is a person, and you've got a meeting 9 till 10 and a meeting 10 till 11, that's great. But then you get another one booked in, which you do want to accept because it might just be something that they can do at the same time, but it's 9:30 till 10:30. The control wouldn't physically show it, so how do we want to show it at runtime? That type of thing. Do we add them at a second row, which is what I've done in another project.
Right, I think that's what we kind of all agreed on as a group when we talked about it originally.
That's it, and it's just basically, there was see, here's the thing. When I sat down, I was at the point of taking a look at some of that, and there was, I need to find my notes, but there was questions. It's a case of, doesn't quite work. I think of a couple of scenarios where, one user might want it one way and one user might want it the other way, and they don't want rows adding. They just want, let's report it back to me, tell the clashes, but do not accept them. Maybe it's physically, let's say it's a resource in a hair salon. Well, they can't be working on two people's hair at the same time, so that's got to be blocked, that type of thing. The calendar does all this, but of course the track bar, it's that type of thing. So it's those where we want to be able to identify and cover different scenarios. That's the thing.
Right. I think the second feature was just limiting the number of events that we actually get a moved event versus moving event.
Oh, that's done. That's all done. That's ready to go.
Well, okay. That'd be great. I can start working on that.
Yeah. Sorry, I mean, I could have probably, I've demonstrated that, but I can quickly demonstrate it now. Oh, sorry, just let me do my toggle. I forgot to, I'll change the time after. I could demonstrate it now, but basically you've got new embed points, and I think it was block moved. And of course, what was happening in the past is if you pick the block up, move it left and right, let's say you moved it from 10 a.m. till, it's a numeric range, 1 to 100. You moved it from 21 to 22 to 23 to 24. You was getting all them events quickly posted. And of course, that from a file I/O point of view is really heavy. No, now what you've got now is you've got an embed point called block moving. So if you still wanted to carry on tracking them, you could do, but you've got one called block moved, and that's basically like an after effect, if you will, and that's telling you basically when you've let go of the mouse and it knows you finally dropped it at position 26, it will report back to you it's been moved and now it's 26. Whereas the moving will report constantly. It's 21, it's 22, it's 23, it's 24, that type of thing.
Yes, and that was really annoying.
Yeah, so and that it's been done. I'm going to put myself. Oh no, because I always update the history as I go along, the date. I was going to say I could have a look at just one of my notes, but I know I update it as I go along. So bring that into play. Yeah, so that was the thing from last week. Set row tooltip. Yes, there was a blatant omission. I'll explain what that is in a second, but I knew I'd done something the other day. But block moving and... No, that's when I did it the other day. So basically... Oh, it's not the other day. That's a couple of weeks ago. But basically, that's done and tried and tested. And it basically what it's doing is... The CodeJot control doesn't give us those events. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping an eye on those to say, okay, is the mouse down as you're dragging it? If you're dragging it around, then and it detects the mouse is still down, then it'll post the event. It'll call the derived method block moving, and if the mouse is up, then it knows, and it has to do a bit of magic there to be fair as well, because the event doesn't actually trigger, so it does its own little trapping of it, but basically it knows its mouse up and it has been moving it around, so then it will tell you, right, it's been moved, its final position is X or N or whatever.
Right.
So that's done. Other little changes which are in there, as you can see, the track view increment style has now been added, so you can actually say, I want my increments to be numeric, or I want my increments to be dates, and so on. So it will automatically do the painting for you rather than you having to put your own code in. The set row tooltip, you've got within the report control, each cell can have a tooltip, which is great, but you might want just an overall, set the tooltip for the overall row. And instead of you having to do it, find the first cell, set that tooltip, find the second cell, set the tooltip, so on and so forth, then I've just introduced a new method called set row tooltip, and it will automatically do all the cells for you in one go, so you don't have to worry about it. And last but not least was the inline facilities, the inline filters, and the inline searches. You could basically put your code in and so on and so forth, but in the embed points. But if you wanted to know after you've just applied a filter, so maybe you want to update some totals under condition, then you need the actual embed point to say, yeah, the filters has just been updated, and there was no way of doing that. So now I've made them derivable, and you can put the code in before or after the generated code. And of course, after means that the filter has just been applied, and hey presto, you can put your code in to update your totals accordingly. So that's gone into one of the customer apps, and it's already being used. So you can't get much better test than that, in my mind. So this is the crazy thing. There has been so many changes already gone in, but just not released because I've been waiting for the others. So maybe this week I actually just remove some of the other prompts, which are the other in progress stuff, just comment them out and get a release out, so at least we've got a starting point for next Monday prior to the webinar. That might be probably a pretty good idea, actually, to be fair.
Okay.
So yes, there have been changes. There's changes on all the products. Like I say, there might be general stuff as I'm going through, and I'll add them accordingly. So one thing I forgot to mention at the start of this, and it's a pretty important one, and I'm sure everybody else is basically, in the same position. The 25th of May, new rules, specifically in in European Union, new rules come into effect to do with GDPR, which is basically your data protection. Now, we'll be sending an email out tomorrow to everybody, basically doing some changes to the Noyantis website so you can actually maintain your own preferences. So basically bringing it to GDPR compliant prior to the 25th, so we don't actually get sued or shut down, which is always a bonus, of course. So those changes will be they're in progress now. If we have a quick look at the actual website, I can quickly show you. There's nothing too exciting, but basically, if we was to log in, I always use one particular account. So we were to log in. Now you'll just see they've just been streamlined a little. You've still got your account details, the products that you're available. The support ticket probably will go, actually, because we are going to tackle that in a different manner. But the preferences, and in there you'll be able to control your account preferences for receiving correspondence from Noyantis. They are set into a bit of a table, if you will. Email, letter. Oh, crikey. Well, I can't find my paperwork. I've only just been doing it as well. Email, letter, SMS, and phone, by phone. Not that we really phone too often, but basically imagine a matrix, if you will. You've got those four types of correspondence, and then against each one of them, we basically cut it into, do you want to receive renewal notices from us, information regarding product launches, training events, and special offers. So you really can fine tune it to your own desire. So you can say, yes, I want to know about training events, and I do want to know about my product renewals, but I don't want to know about any special offers or anything like that. So that keeps it GDPR compliant. So those changes will be coming into effect. The website will be changes going on tomorrow. It's more or less there. Just got to finish that page, the preferences page, and the synchronize back to our database, and the letter, and then an email will go out to all of you, hopefully reminding everybody to basically update their preferences, and to try and encourage everybody. We will be running a competition where basically everybody who does update the preferences will be in basically a lucky a prize draw. So there'll be 2 or 3 prizes. So just to encourage people, if nothing else. So that's it really, from that point of view. So any other questions on that? Because it's a subject to bring up.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So let's have a look. We've got a hand up of Leo. So Leo. So yeah.
Hello.
Hi. How are you doing?
Very well. I have 4 questions about report control.
Report control. Okay.
The first one is, did you do some work in the enter decimal number in editing line place?
No. Yes, I took a look as promised, but not enough. If truth be known, basically I wanted to try and trap it by prefixing it with like a null and so on and so forth. I think we played about it in one of the webinars, and that was my the approach that I used. But no, we've not actually got a solution on that or a resolution on that, which of course we need to. So, but I've got the list. I've got it here. I'm trying to find it actually. It was. Oh, it's there. Yes, sorry.
The second is I send you in takes if I have more than 41 string fields in report control, the report control program is crash.
So this is to do with the actual number of columns.
Yes.
Yes.
But string columns, you if you have long columns, you can have more than 41.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember the email coming in. I didn't see that bit about it, though, to be honest. So, well, I'm just wondering, is it... that sounds to me, is it to do with memory?
I don't know.
What version of the controller are you using?
I mean, at the moment... 18. 18.3.
Okay, string columns. And you say greater than 40?
41. 42 is crash. 41 is work.
Well, okay. Then, no, I will take a look.
In the email, I'll send you a
yes, I do remember that coming in. That's not a problem. I must have missed a bit about if there was integers or new numbers and so on. Must have missed that bit, to be honest with you. But I do remember about the number of columns. Well, there's nothing from the templates point of view as to why that would why that would occur. It would have to be to do with the control. Hence why I asked what version you're using. So that we will have to take a look at.
Okay.
But chances are we'll probably be reporting that to CodeJock, because it's not really it's not going to be a template issue. But I can quite happily put a version together and send them a test, a test app for them to take a look at.
Okay. The first question is, if I have 2 report control in the same screen, can I do drag and drop from the second one to?
Technically, yes, you can. John actually does do that with the report control. That is very much, and Kevin's probably slapping his head here, but the template as it is now doesn't really just give you enter the drag ID, enter the drop ID, and do the work for you. You do have to do the settings yourself manually. They're not actually that bad a setting. John did it and put them in via the set properties and so on and so forth. So it can be done, but to keep it in true Clarion style, if you will, we would want to do it in the normal manner of enter the drop ID, enter the drag ID, and trap all the events for you accordingly. Just like we do with the calendar. I don't know if you use the calendar, but you can do the drag and drop with that and so on. So we would want to do it in the same manner, and it's one of the the tasks which has been requested. It's not been requested enough, so it keeps slipping down the list. But where's my report control note there? I will take a look at it for you. The other changes are going to come out first, I'll be honest with you, because already there's been a lot of delays on them, so they will come out first. But we will take a look at the drag and drop. If it's something really simple, absolutely brilliant, we'll get that in at the same time. But just in case it's not, and we do need to trap all eventualities rather than just the ones which might fit your application, then it might take a little longer.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, no problem. Okay, so looking quickly down the questions, it's very good today. We've got lots of questions on. Update on that. We've got Paul, which I'm going to come to in a minute. So, Paul, if you're around, get the microphone, please. Bijan was saying that's a facility he would like. I presume that was I think it was the track bar and the detecting the clashes, if you will, on the actual blocks. Okay. Yes. So Bijan, yes. Okay. So Paul, mic's open. Paul, if you're around.
I am. Good morning, or good afternoon for you.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. So, do you want to give a bit of background on what it is you want to accomplish? And I already have ideas because I've done it in a couple of applications, and then we can bounce the ideas around if that's okay.
Yes. So, in a nutshell, what several clients are looking for is custom fields, and I thought the property grid with the questionnaire you demonstrate in one of the training we did in Orlando looked perfect, because you could pick numeric types, you could just have free text, you kind of do whatever you like.
Okay.
And just some ideas on how you're doing that, so that my brain is primed for how I'll tackle it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that's fine. Basically, users. We'll just cover a bit of background work first. What we've done, what we've done in the past at different places and so on and so forth, is we had the requirement where originally you had it was practice management software for dentists and so on, and you might have a particular form that you have to fill in when you first visit the dentist, and it's like a medical history, which was great. But one dental practice, because you might be selling to private practices, and then some might be NHS practices, but they don't like all of the questions that the national an organisation in England and Wales and Scotland, the NHS National Health Service, they don't like their questions. Then what they would do is maybe reword them or add a few extra and so on and so forth. So the thing was, you had this questionnaire, but it would be different from practice to practice. So you've got hundreds of customers out there, which means you've got hundreds of these questionnaires. There's no practical way in the actual software that you could hard code it, because you'd be forever just maintaining these fixed questions to put on a particular screen for one practice. So that was basically a non-starter. So we came up with, okay, well, we'll let them design their own questions. And in older versions, I think it might have been in the older version of software, which was back in Clarion 4 and Clarion 5, you created a screen at runtime, which of course we could do, Clarion, create the controls and so on and so forth. But the better way of doing it is with the property grid, because that can take basically any number of questions, and you can put hints on there and tool tips and so on and so forth. And of course, you can also say what type of answer you want from it. So their name is a string. Their date of birth, you're expecting a date, so that automatically populates a date lookup for you in the property grid, and so on and so forth. So this is how it came into play in the using the property grid. And then in another system, and I completely forgot to set it up today. I could try, but and set it up in a system which we have here. We went one step further, where you could set up, and we have demonstrated this in the past, so it's definitely on one of our older webinars. You could set up your questions, but say what type of interface would you expect from it. So let's say you wanted it to be a questionnaire, then it would take the questions and put them into a property grid for you and record the answers. But it might be that it's the same questions you ask on a daily basis. So let's say it's something like a care home, and you ask, there's a form you have to fill in basically every morning to say, how's the patient slept, what manner, how do they seem alert wise, and so on and so forth. So basically all repeat questions on a daily basis. So you're not going to do the same questionnaire per se. What you can do is fill it in a bit like a spreadsheet, if you will. So you have a date and the series of answers, followed by a date and another row with a series of answers. So we give the interface like that. So you can still say, I want to basically prompt for all these questions, but they're going to be in basically a row, if you will, a grid. So we give the two options. So that's giving you ideas. I don't know if that's confused it or helped you at all. How do you feel on that so far?
That's good ideas so far, yes.
Okay, so we'll go with one. We'll go with just the property grid to start with. And we can quickly show how you could convert it into the grid and so on. And if I can get the application running, which is this one here, Center Manager, but I will try. But let's see if we can actually get some progress first. So you said I did it in one of the training, because that actually helps me. Was it in this year's? Last year's?
Last fall, yes, the very first evening when I was
Brilliant.
Very tired.
Yeah, well,
I was part of the contingent that arrived at 3 a.m.
In fairness, I mean, 10 out of 10 for attending them. They were late sessions. We didn't start until 7 p.m. and that was after a full day's training and so on and so forth. And that, so they were late sessions. It's I like doing the training, and they do go down really well. But I don't think I'll be doing the 7 till 10ish, half 10 again. We'll plan them differently next time, definitely. Okay, so let me find where the training sessions are. And let's just open up with them. So I would have thought then it would have come under the application UI. Would that be correct?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, okay. So let's just open up.
Now, one of the points with that is the version I downloaded, there's a horrible echo. Is that just something on my system, or is that...
No, we ended up on, I think, on a couple of the sessions, they became one was okay, one was a bit echoey, and then I haven't a clue why, but one, the feedback was terrible, but we didn't know at the time. It was literally only post recording. So what I said I would do is re-record the actual sessions privately here, leave it until late hours so the other officers have gone and people aren't roaming around the offices and so on and so forth. Have it nice and quiet and just re-record them. The materials there, all the step-by-step apps are here and so on and so forth. So it's just a matter of re-recording. I've even got the software actually. It's where is it? I was going to make a recommendation actually. Oh, there. Yeah, Move AVI Video Suite, and they do recording and screen recordings and conversions. It's pretty good application actually if anyone needs to do anything to do with video. So okay, totally digress from that. Let's jump straight to step 6 and let's have a look at the final application so we can see what it is because we're not going to go through all the training. We just really want to have a look at what it is we achieved on that evening, and then I can talk you through what approach we used in it.
So I was looking at the manual one, and I certainly have been able to duplicate that. It was more how you're persisting the questions, because that's obviously all done by the templates and so on.
Yep, no problem. Let me just remind myself. And we'll cover the design as well, basically how we did it in the tables. And there was a plus point to it. Going back to the practice one, the practice software, version's not compiled, so we'll have a look. Going back to the practice software, what we did on that is we had it so you could set up any number of forms. So you could have your medical history. You might have what you call an FP17. You might have, which is basically a predefined form, if you will. And you might have what you call a social history, all to do with clinical guidance and so on and so forth. You could have all these particular questions and questionnaires, all definable by the practice themselves, so the software themselves. So this model fits any type of business. It could be car rental, it could be dental practice, it could be a hairdresser's. You go in for going to a hairdresser, and I mean, I don't really go that often. I've been bald for donkey's years, but you go to the hairdresser, somebody's going to basically have a colour. You need to record the fact that you give them some kind of skin test, so that they're not reaction and so on and so forth. So you could have these forms, the content of which fully customizable by yourself, and then the beauty of it is from that we would save the answers, so you've got a completed form, and we could, if you wanted to, paint that into basically a PDF, print it out and let the person sign them, or we actually allowed them to go to a Windows tablet, put the series of questions on the tablet, let them go through the questions. So you've got all this definition. You see, you've got the first question is going to be the name, and you expect it in a string. The second one's going to be a date, so you expect a date of birth, so you're expecting a date, and you know to change the keypad at the bottom to put it so it's quickly enterable dates and so on. So you've got all this information in the design, and then they will do next and next to go through the pages. Once they've done it, you could present them, which what we did is present them with the completed PDF where they say, yeah, that's what I've just answered. I concur. Ask them for a signature box. We would have them basically use a stylus to start a sign in the box, which was an image EX control actually. Have them sign in the box, and then we would take that image which they just signed and place it into the PDF, and then basically sign that off as a sealed PDF, and that becomes a legally binding document. So
yes, and I'm using similar, not the signing part, but everything else. It's for bookkeeping and accounting practices where they have a whole number of steps which each client pays for.
Yep.
And so all of this is dynamic, and they may even negotiate it. We will, I don't know, do your payroll and file your, we call it GST, you call it VAT.
Yep.
We'll pay, we'll do a variety of things, and each client's unique. So all of those steps and all that stuff has to be dynamically done and then remembered, like you say.
Yeah. So basically, that's some of the uses which we've used them for, and they've, like I said, they'll fit any kind of industry because it's just a series of questions and answers. So, and we all, like I say, accounting, healthcare, car maintenance, car rental, doesn't really matter. Anything where you give them a series of questions and you expect a series of answers and you want to record them for prosperity, then it fits the bill really well. So you were looking at this one. You say the manual.
That, yes, as an example.
Okay, so this is just giving you a bit like the simple the example app that's shipped with the PropertyGrid, and this just basically gives you the different types. So we can see here, for those who aren't familiar with the PropertyGrid, that is that you can have categories. and each category can have any number of items and sub-items, of course. So you could actually have, a subcategory, if you will. So you can actually build these like a tree, and then you say what type of answer. So you can see this is expecting a color. So if we use the lookup button, we get a color. This is all automatically provided for you via the control. This language, this is basically a single select. So we can say we're expecting this language or this language. And then we go through different ones. So you can have basically, I've got the window here because it's quite nice today, but a lot of background noise. You can have pictures. So we could type over this so you can see it's entry pictures. There should be a number one if I remember rightly. We've got times, of course. So trying to find the numeric. There we go, a simple number, or you can have a number with basically the thing. So this is the different types you've got, and these types all have their own individual equate. That'll come into it in a second on where we set up the question types. So, and you could have a spin if you wanted, or technically you could have both. You could have a spin and a track bar. Sorry, a slider. And one other one you would do is in our types of questions, we would say we're expecting a string, or we are expecting a date, or we're expecting a number. You could say we're expecting multiple choice. So we're expecting a single answer, but from a multiple choice. So we can say it's radio buttons are the perfect example for that. We're expecting one answer out of these 4 possible options. Flip side of that is you could have what you call an enum. So you could say, I want to basically say multiple options, but I want multiple answers. So it could be a case of which of our products are you interested in? And they can select 1 and 2, 3 and 5, that type of thing. The way you design that is you only be storing one answer. So you would use basically like a bit, if you will. So it would be 1, 2, 4, 8. 16, 32. So you would have set each one of these up with their own individual values. So you can see I've got there 1, 2, 4, 8. Of course, you wouldn't have that. You would have yours as Calendar Pro, chart, which products are you interested in, the chart, the calendar, the command bars. But behind the scenes, I would give them a value of 1, 2, 4, 8, giving me the ability to store multiple answers all in one variable. Oh, and there's the date, just in case no one's seen it. So that's the control. In the auto one then, okay, yeah, in the auto, let's have a look at what that does. Again, I have to familiarize myself. Okay, what that's done, there's a few ways you can get the data into the property grid. As I mentioned a minute ago, you can have categories and items. So if we quickly go to the manual one, we've got specified in template. This is all manual, so you can specify there. That's great if it's always predefined and you're doing a one-off system for somebody, but it's not really practical for runtime changeable solution and so on. So your options are, you can do them to a list control, manually loaded, a queue, and so on. I find personally, now we're getting into the crux of it, I find personally the queue is your best option. Okay? Because what you can do there is, I desperately need to get that running, I'll have a look in a second, but basically you could say which questionnaire do you want to go and complete, and you could give them a drop down or a lookup or maybe a list control on the screen, and they go up and down the list, and you want to populate a preview of the property grid underneath. Well, instead of you doing all the code to try and add this item, add that item, and so on and so forth, what you could do is just define a queue and then say to the property grid, I want you to basically paint yourself to that queue. So as the queue changes, you automatically change the property grid. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay.
So basically, let's see about putting some examples into this. So I'm going to actually pinch the design. Let's open up. Are you happy on what you're hearing so far on the approach, and is there any questions you've got so far?
Yes, so I assume the queue, then you do the who, what, where, why kind of stuff.
It does it, yeah. Let's open up. Let's take a quick look. So we'll keep that there. I'll open up one of the. Tell you what, on the other screen, I will quickly see if I can just set the center manager. Won't be 1 second because it'll be so much easier for me. And I don't know why it stopped working on this machine. And it's our application. That's the embarrassing bit.
Call technical support.
They're not very good. Take ages to get back to you. I'll get in there before everybody else does. Now, and I think I introduced some.
So I noticed as I watched some of the royal wedding, I didn't see you in all the pans they had inside the church. I thought you were invited.
Yeah, I'm too short. I was too small.
Is that what it was?
That's right. So, right, okay. Let's just go to any of these and let's bring the applications in. So it won't be a second. Sorry about this, everybody. It'll just be so much easier if we can see a running version and then basically explain what's going on behind the scenes and actually open up some design. I'm perfectly happy to open those up. Okay, nearly there. Put some changes in place so it talks to our server to make sure we know who's logging in and so on. And I think I screwed up my own setup. No. Oh, that's annoying. Okay. Put that aside. We'll go to the apps, so at least you can see what's going to happen. I'll just take you through the steps. Okay. So let's start with a dictionary. So we have, we call them forms in this particular system. So we would have at the start of it a form definition header. So very simple. On here, we basically say what type of form. You give it a name. Nothing really. So the form type, ignore that. That's just basically if you wanted to filter, say, medical form, social form, this type of thing. That's nothing more than a filter. So from the main point of view, from a setup point of view, is we would have a name, a description, what type of interface. Now this could be a questionnaire or a grid, which I mentioned earlier. If you wanted these forms to basically supersede each other, so imagine you had a version, if you will. So you can never change the old form, because, not in my mind anyway, because somebody might have completed this questionnaire and last year, let's call that version 1, and then you changed it this year and you added a couple of questions to it, and you maybe took one of the options away, which was no longer required. Well, you basically, you could have the same form, but it would actually become another record, another header record, because it's not the one that they completed. So
completely understand.
Yeah, so basically you've got to keep a copy of the one that they originally completed. Otherwise, their answers are completely meaningless. The answer to question 4 is male. It used to be what gender. Now it's, date of birth, and the answer is male. It's completely irrelevant. So that's why basically we have this start and end, so you can actually supersede each other or reverse.
I add another thing. I add an active inactive in addition to that, so that only one is active at a time.
Yeah, well, what we would, yes, basically, when they go to complete, we would only ever show the newest version of each form, because there's no point in bringing up the old version. It's you superseded it, so we would only ever show. So it's basically, by adding the new one, you're making the last one inactive, so exactly what you've just said. So we've got that, and we're also given the ability to have header and footer. This is mainly for printing, if you will. So if you're going to print it out, we want to give a nice header section with some wording and a nice footer on it, and so on and so forth. So that's just a standard header record, if you will. So the main principles, what we need is the name, the description. We'll mention this interface, and that's really it. So naturally from that, we would have the questions. So we've got the header. Now we'll go to the questions. So of course it links in, so we can see what form does it actually belong to, so the form definition. So all these are just standard, the ID of that record, ignore that. The form definition it belongs to. Really, it's from this point down that we're interested in, if you will. So you would have the question number. So you want, this is question number 1, this is question number 2, so on and so forth. So we'd have a question number to start with. We would actually have the question, which always helps, of course. The type of answer. Now we store the type, and we use the equates from the property grid, because we're going to be using the property grid to present it to the user, or a report control if it's a grid, but let's put that temporarily to the side. Although it's still perfectly fine, the report control supports dates and strings and numbers and so on and so forth. So those types still work for that scenario. So we would have the question: what type of answer do you expect? Do you want to allow any related info? And what that means is, do you want to take some notes? So on this, it might be, are you on medication? And it's we're expecting a Boolean, a yes or a no, a true or false, yes or no. So are you on medication? Well, the blatant one of that would be allow related information. So they can say yes, and I'm on warfarin, that type of thing, or I'm on, are you allergic to anything? Yes, I'm allergic to penicillin, that type of thing. So that's the allow related information that we usually add. So maximum characters, if we wanted to put a maximum number of characters that they're allowed to enter, so say string 200, so we can just keep an eye on what they're typing and so on. Default value, forget the group and the subgroup. For your design point of view, you can add these niceties, yourself afterwards. But basically, question number, question, the type of answer. We normally say they allow extra information. The default value, it's always nice. We allow them to put basically, date of completion. Put a default value in there of, and we allow tokens. So we could say this token is a function. It's called today. So it reads it as a function, and it will apply the today automatically for them. That type of thing. Or default value and allow a token. So you can say they're filling in a medical form. You know what patient you're on. So when you fill it in, you want the name and address and everything like that pre-filled in for them. So they're not having to type them all in themselves. So that type of thing. So the default value for the question, and we also allow some help text. Help text and a tooltip. What we do with that and again, this is just bouncing ideas around for you, is the tooltip within the property grid or the report control, of course. So that's the tooltip that they would see. But it could be, we found one particular form we was doing where one of the questions, it was heavily medical orientated, and they expected you to really put in a load of prefixes, acronyms and so on. And an experienced user would know that, but an inexperienced newbie wouldn't. So what we did is we give them this help. And what that is we used our HTML control, and we stored the HTML content so that when you set the question up, we could say, okay, here's a question. We're going to ask about maybe the medication, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You're going to ask this question. We're going to expect a string off them, and we want to give them some really detailed help. So we would use our HTML editor to allow them to format up some HTML help there and then. So you really go in the extra mile from setting up the questionnaire point of view for the end user. So so far we've got our questions, and we've got our form definition, and we've got our questions. Are we okay so far?
This is great. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, I am.
Cool. So anybody else? Not lost anybody? Are they all sleeping? Hopefully people are still around. So
it is morning in my part of the world, so they're probably awake.
So okay, well that's a bonus too. So last but not least is we've got this type of question, and if it's a string, that's great. If it's a date or a number, that's also great. But we've got these couple of scenarios where we say we want to give them options. It could be multiple option, single answer, or it could be multiple options, multiple answer. In one will just store the single value, one will store an enum of the values. So a bit like are you what county are you from, and you give a list of counties. There you go, it's just one. Or what products are you interested in, and we're interested in A, B and X, so you can store the enum of all three values, that type of thing. So to be able to present them with that, we need an options table. So we would go, okay, we've got basically our question ID that it links back to. So now we've got our design hierarchy. We've got a header, we've got questions, which is a one-to-many, and from the question, we've got question to options, a one-to-many. So, which you see is one we prepared earlier from the relations. And the options would be basically the option number, the option itself. So, if it was a county, we would have Nottinghamshire, Manchester, London, Liverpool, Merseyside, that type of thing, so on and so forth. Or you could have, if you're interested in multiple products, you would have multiple records in here, and there'd be Calendar Pro, Chart Pro, HTML editor, Chillcat, that type of thing. And then we would have the value. So you can store the value of that. So basically, it's very, very simple. You can just see it as a one-to-many, and the value would depend on the type of question you're asking. So if it's a single question, single answer, you could say the values can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And if it's an enum, you would expect them to be 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, just so you can store the uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your hierarchy. We'll come back. Let's see how we actually implemented that. We'll come back to this column definitions afterwards, because that's just to do with if we used a grid. So that's all that's to do with. So that was the design point of view. Then we came to the forms. Where's the form? Lib. Typical. Can't see where it is. We'll go with that for now. Won't be a second, sorry, just getting it. What do you know? Right. Sorry about this. Just thought I might have found a file that was missing, which is why it weren't running before. Be nice if that was the case.
Would you be willing to share the file definitions only for those 4 or 5 that you had there?
Of course,
Otherwise,
yeah. We might.
Otherwise, I'll just have to type them out by watching this again.
No, well, I tell you what we could do. Shall we actually pinch some code and actually knock this around as an example? How's that sound?
Sure,
Right.
that would be great.
Okay, then.
Now I see what you're doing. Now I understand where the queue comes in. You build it from that, and then that's the queue you use to build the property grid.
Yep.
And
Well,
everything in your classes uses those queues, so I understand where that's going.
Okay, so I'm going to open up and we'll have this so people can utilize this afterwards. We'll probably trim out some. Well, we won't trim any dead wood out to start with, but let's just. Oh, crikey, it's going to be heavily SQL based. I'll tell you, yes, I will share.
That doesn't hurt me, but.
Yeah. Well, let's cover the source code, and then yes, I'll make sure that you go on your way with a dictionary that you can blatantly use. That's not a problem. Okay, so let's just open up that source. So yes, it will want to be in that build again.
So will I have to, every time I use your dictionary, have a copyright notice? Notice has been provided by.
No.
Andy, and I'm teasing you.
I might see a good idea out there, and I'll blatantly use a good idea off anybody else as well. So basically, it's share and share alike as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so basically there would have been the update in here. There would have been an update form. So we've got our name, so that should be our header, which it is. A start date, start time, so we can always ensure that we are running the latest one. We had a type, which would be this basically, what type of form is it? Is it medical, social? It doesn't really matter, forget that one. And how would you want it presented? We want it presented as a questionnaire, or we want it as a grid. So in our questions here, we would have a queue. So I've got a list. It's going from form definitions. Form def questions, looks like it's that table there. Yep. And if we have a quick look at our list box, we can see it's our question number, the question, what type, and we just change that into some wording. So it's nice, word, so on and so forth. Sorry, a string or a date, that type of thing, rather than giving them the numeric equate, and a default value. So we would show them from a maintenance point of view. This wasn't the thing I was thinking of. But that's just a straightforward browse. We have got this header text, and an image as well. So I think we allow both, and same with the footer. And we just always allow people to store notes. So as you can see, basically, just setting up the form header, if you will. From that, we'd have our questions, and I think this was pretty straightforward. Question number, the type of answer, which of course would be, I think I just build a local queue, but it's question types, the question, and the default value. And the extra bits I was on about was if you had options, it would prompt for the options. These are just straightforward browsers, no magic here so far. And basically the help text and the tooltip text. So that's a HTML editor there, and that's just a straightforward text control there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's where you're updating the form definition. This is what we're after when they are actually going to do a client form. So we've selected a client and we said they're going to do a form. So we choose what form is it. That's our form header, of course. And we have a preview. Now we have a couple of previews here. One's a report control and one should be a property grid. Somewhere there should be, and they're just hidden. Remember, it can take either. There's group RC and somewhere there will be there, group property grid. So we can see there's a property grid and we have a web browser to help, to show the HTML help as they're going down the questions and so on. So what we're after is the embed point of this. Let's go to our property grid to see where it's getting its data from first. So there's our property grid. We take our data source and saying it's getting it from a queue. So the property grid will define that queue for you. Okay. And it's contents queue. So it's a predefined queue. And there's, if we bring that in to show you what that looks like. Contents queue. Oh, there's the content, and here's all the different things you can set, which you will want. So you can give it a particular category, because remember, this queue is going to do the items and the categories all in one go. We're not going to give it two queues to say this is your categories and these are the items that belong to each one of them. It's just one queue. So we're going to say, right, that's to do with how it's going to be categorized. Here's the item, so it's a unique ID and a name and a value. If it's a new one, you'd populate that value with the default value. If you're editing or viewing an old one, then you would populate that with the answer, which we haven't covered the answers table, but we'll do that in a second. But you would put your answer in there. What type, description and tooltip, and then we're off into the other things of how do you want the alignment, what clarion type would you know it as. I think there's a picture. Yeah, there is. So,
the display basically
that type of thing. Yeah, and then the options. So, and we allow for an array of 50. We could change it if anybody ever kicked off and said we need more array elements, but 50 is not bad. The screen's only so big. So that's the queue. Let's see that in action in our, whoops, not 9.1. Let's see that in action in the embed code. So display the contents and the name. We're going to show the required control. All that's going to do is just switch, which tab. If is it a grid or is it a report control, a property grid, or is it a questionnaire or a grid? Which is it a property grid or is it a report control? So we're going to say show the correct one and then build the contents, and we pass it the ID of the header that we want to go and build. Go to ours, build contents. Oh, I have made it quite clean code, if I say so myself. But you can see the interface. And yes, so we're going to rebuild the property grid. So as long as they've shown something different, there's no point in rebuilding if it's not changed. Then basically I free the class content queue. I must have my own queue of questions for whatever I'm using. Oh, this is TPS. So we could actually go and pinch this in a second. So, we could actually have a look at doing this. Okay, so we've got that. We just read through and we're just going to go and populate the queue. And then if it's got some options, so rather than, if it's a Boolean, rather than it say true and false, it's usually nicer to say yes and no. You've got, I always use old Doris, but you've got an elderly woman, old Doris, filling in a questionnaire which you don't really want to fill in the first place. She wouldn't have a clue if you said true or false to her. She just wants a nice simple yes and no. So we just override the Boolean to say we want true and false as a value, but we want the wording to say yes and no. So just a little a nicety.
I see what you're doing there. Yes.
Yeah. So if it's we do basically, if it's a Boolean, I'm going to purposely go and I'm going to change the type to an option rather than put it in as a Boolean, which the property grid would want you to put it in as that, and it would display it as a checkbox, and possibly put the wording true or false on there. We don't. We change its type to say, and this is purely down to the design in our software, how we wanted it to run for the end user. But we're going to say, we're going to override the Boolean, we're going to put it in as an actual option, single answer, and we want the answer to be one of these, yes or no. Failing that, we then just go and read the options table, and if there is any, we go and put them in into the array. Remember, they've got an array of 50. So that would give you the empty, if you will, brainy gear Andy, that would give you the empty questionnaire of our questions and so on. So far so good. Then we would attempt to read our answers. Now, we've not come across our answer table so far. Let's have a quick look at it. We've got a client form, which is basically you've got your form definition, and now we've got one for the client to say, this client has completed this form on this date. So we can see this client has completed this form on that date, that time, that person handed it to them, or it was completed by that person for the client, and there's a description of them doing that. Okay, so that's a very simple table. To go with that, we'd have our answers. So basically, we've got the form that they're being completed. Oh, there's the form, sorry, being completed. The question ID, which is taken from our question table, the master question table, if you will, but the ID of that record, and it's literally the answer and any related information, which is the related information where we're saying, like, let them enter some notes, if you will. So, are you allergic to anything? The answer would be 1, true, and the additional information would be free format text where they could put, I'm allergic to penicillin, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So, very simple table. So we're just going to read through that. Sorry, we haven't added to our queue yet, so we've populated our queue. The only thing we do is, if we're in change mode, we would go and attempt to find an answer, and if we can find it, we put the item value to the answer. So they're going looking at a completed form. That would go on.
Oh, I see. You're populating the answers.
Yeah, straight into the queue. So I've read the question, so I'm looping through the questions. Here we go. Got a question. It's perfectly valid. Let's put that in. But prior to adding it to the queue, I'm just going to actually say, okay, go and see if we've already got an answer on file for this form, this client form, this question. Have we got an answer on file for them? If we have, then let's put that answer into the queue automatically, so that when the property grid is painted, you've already got it filled in with all the answers. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm keeping I must be doing this for, I'd have to have a look, but I must be doing this for another reason to, must be to do with our help actually, because I'm storing the help text and so on and so forth. So I'm keeping my own external queue, my own local queue. That's really it. I've got a default value where I've got a little lib routine, which merges the tokens. So I can say, right, I want to basically, I think that's just what type of record are you passing me in, because you could have staff tokens, patient tokens, client tokens, car tokens, whatever kind of things, so you could have different. I've just got a lib routine which says that ID is a type 3, which is the client, and basically I want you to go and merge the tokens for this content, that type of thing. But you don't have to do that. That's just a nicety that I put in there. Any questions?
None so far. This is British term, I think, is brilliant.
Excellent, cool. Okay, we can't really see that in action, so should we just see about knocking an example up together of that?
Sure, that would be wonderful.
Okay, that's going to come in handy actually. Do you know what? I'm going to leave that open for pinching the code. So let's have that Clarion open over there. And got a folder for the work groups for today. And questionnaire example. So from that we would need a dictionary. Okay. You're not going to need blatantly loads of this. Makes me wonder whether it should have been easier to. Let's get rid of that. Yep. Going to need that. We'll just keep all the client stuff to start with. Okay.
Personnel because you in other places. That makes sense.
Yeah. If I'm just trying to think how we're going to do this.
Yeah, I completely understand.
Really do want this to be TPS. So, do you know? Let's rip a load of this out and change it to top speed because it'll just be easier for shipping to people.
I'm starting to forget how to use TPS.
Well, do you know,
once you convert, you can't go back.
I'm going to struggle a little today. I'm going to expect some of you guys to bail me out. It's a while since I've done TPS. When I saw the code a second ago, I kind of was a little shocked that it was just doing a loop. Normally, I'd have expected that to be doing a SQL query straight into a queue. Oh, crikey, there's going to be loads on this. Do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to trim out so much deadwood out of that in a second. Well, maybe not now, but before it leaves, I'll get rid of a load of the deadwood out of that. So to speak.
That's kind of irrelevant. That's easy to.
Now, this has got the cells because it's also going to allow it for this grid approach.
Yes.
So we haven't covered that. It's only a variation of what we've actually spoke about. Okay. Types, yep. All variables. Okay. I'll come to that afterwards. Okay. you know what? Let's just skip all that. Before I send it out, I will give all that a quick once over. Okay, that gives us a dictionary. And we'll have a new app.
And you'll just import it from the dictionary and it'll work, right? Isn't that how that works?
Yeah, I mean, we could try that.
Don't you have an automatic AI? Like AI is such a big thing.
Well, yeah, it's on the to-do list. Questionnaire. Okay, questionnaire. So let's go with that.
And I don't know if I should say this. Diego, I think, would tell us that he's got AI in all of his stuff.
Yep. Okay. So this is going to be very, very basic, but enough
I understand
to get what we're after. Hope I'm typing questionnaire correctly. It's very embarrassing. Okay. We'll have one called setup. And in there we will have our forms. Now, one has to admit, it would be nice if I could import from the other.
If you do a selective export, you might be able to pull that off.
Just wondering that myself. Okay. Let's have a look at what we've got. Oh, no, for example, today, only for license and so on and so forth, I'm just going to go down that route.
Yeah.
1631, we'll go with Office 2010. We're going to also need possibly command bars. You haven't got any of these. Anybody, watching the recording back and would like to use this and so on and so forth. We're going to go with the default. If you haven't got any of these things, you will get a slight compile error and so on, and you just have to mod it accordingly. Docking panes. We don't need docking panes. We don't need GMedia. We are going to need the HTML editor to start with. Only because it's got that setup. We can strip it out afterwards, but it will have it in by default. Don't need our PDF viewer. We will definitely need the property grid, which is what drove this in the first place. We will need the report control. I don't think we need the suite controls. Okay, so that gets us a starting point. So I'm going to list update. I'm going to take off some of the other things off that. Things that might cause an issue, so.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me, I have a MacBook Pro that I set up with a Windows emulator, and I did everything from scratch. It was fun to get my first app to compile.
Cool. And
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, which Windows emulator do you use?
Fusion, because I use VMware on my PC.
Right, yeah.
And so they just copy back and forth. Whatever people want to say about Macs, their hardware is beautiful.
Oh yeah, agreed. Yeah, I was running one for a long time using the Parallels, and that was pretty good.
The really humorous thing is they claim crazy battery life, and when I use it to browse, or I'm actually using the Mac to watch this, when I compile in Windows, in the emulator,
Yep.
The notebook just heats up, the fan screams, it's not silent, and I'll burn through battery power. I think I get maybe 3.5 hours. Otherwise, I get the advertised 10. But when you actually use it for work, it's not so good.
Oh, right, okay.
Still fine, but it is kind of interesting. I think when you make them work, they all obviously have to use lots more power.
Oh, missed one out. So let's selective export.
That's not bad. You're halfway there.
Update question option. Forgot about that one.
So how's your new employee working out? I know you can't say much.
Yes, actually, she's finished now for the day, but yeah, it's working pretty good. Good. Okay, I'm going to comment out the merge token. Disable RAS. Rec limit. Have I left in? I have. That's what I wrote.
Things.
No, it's the utility template we have, and I've left that in. So let's just take that out. Don't think it'll bite us. So we wanted form types. Okay, now I still don't understand what that is. Noyantis utilities. That shouldn't be on. Be a second. It's almost as though some things haven't been removed when they should have been.
Would closing and opening the app help? I don't.
I'm just doing it on the other screen. If people are wondering, well, what's he doing? I'm just on the I'm just on the other screen, just going through them. That looks okay. I've got to take off the resize and split, which will be one of the things. That'll be the RAS, then I take it. Okay, so want all that out. Save that and let's try selective export again. Okay. Be easier if I just change that to call the other. Oh, actually, no, I just want to. Okay, very crudely, just going to do a generated browse on that one. Browse wizard. But okay. Okay. Do you know what? Might have to do some more work on this. Let's have a quick look. Okay, number 3. Go on our utilities one. Paul, I think I'm going to have to. I will knot the example together, but there's going to be a bit more involved in this because it's tied to SQL and our Noyantis utils and so on and so forth.
I have a GUID utility myself that I wrote just using Microsoft's Create GUID for me.
Yeah, well, that's what all that does. It's just Noyantis utils it's a global. You add it as a global, it puts itself onto all the extensions, and it's just a local class. So I've got a tool set available each procedure, so I can get GUIDs and do folder manipulation and compare contents, lots of things. So, but I'm going to have to rework the thing. I'll be honest. Not too bad.
Is there anything in there that's I don't know what the format grid and questions that's for the report control, the first 2 errors?
They're just equates. Yeah, they're just equates. So whatever. I'd have to have a look at what that is, but basically that's just a global equate, which I could just set up. So that's no problem. But it's the dictionary. I think we'd have to rework some of the dictionary. Let's just take a quick look. Okay, where we're looking for the GUID. It would be on the main. I'd have expected it to be on that. There, the GUID.
And there you have one.
Okay. What table's that? Oh, that's not a table. It's on a priming on insert.
Or do you have it in the table? Or do you, oh, there you have it. And you had two of them, so there's another table where you're...
There is, yeah, in 7. But I just saw that this has got...
oh, it's secured, yeah. I'm starting to use the database engine security for some of that.
Oh, right, okay.
So there's no way they can do anything, even if they use a foreign, I call it a foreign system, because the actual database engine enforces the rules.
Yeah, that definitely work. Are you tools? In 5? NYS? Oh, NYS utils. Must have missed one. Oh. Okay.
Woohoo!
So, questions in its what field is it? Show correct tab. FDH interface. FD interface. Can't see if we're looking at because I'm on it. 01. Ah, which way around was that?
Mark Goldberg's not going to be happy with you.
No, I'm not happy with me. So, Yeah, I don't like what I just did there. Never. Okay, so we've got that. I just need to grab some icons and put them in that folder, so which will help. So. We will need forms.
Form types.
Go on. Ooh. I can't let that go out the door like that, but okay. That looks terrible. Right, and just let me just 1 second on that.
You're like me.
It looks horrendous. So
That's the new look, isn't it? Like postmodern grunge.
yes, it is lovely. Where are we? Just wanted to. Okay. We've got no types, and we haven't done a maintenance for a type either. So, unfortunately, we are going to do a very rough and ready type as well.
This gets me miles ahead. Leagues.
Oh, good. Well, before you show it anybody, please correct these two browsers or totally disassociate them from Noyantis.
I thought I would have, provided courtesy of our friends, and every time it pops up.
So we've got form types, and we'll just have medical and social, something like that. So now we should be able to give it a, let's say it's medical property grid. Medical, yeah. We want it as a questionnaire, so we're going to have some questions. We're going to say it's, and we've not loaded up our thingy. Okay. That's not going to work then.
It's always the setup that takes time. I understand that.
So let's find, would it be in the includes? Global setup. Nope. Possibly this app. Won't be a second. Nope, it's not that app either. Okay. What we was short of?
Form type questions, maybe?
Oh, yeah, the question type. Yeah, so I just want to lab. Jumping around from app to app trying to find which one it is. It's a while since I've worked on this system. I'm actually struggling to find out where I do it.
Is it an enumeration or a series of grades, or is it something else that
GV question types. No, I was actually, it's in the file manager. I must have. I do remember how I tackled it now.
I see.
It's all part of basically a initialization, so you see the progress go across and so on and so forth. So here you just have a global, you can see setting up a global queue so you can see what type of questions it will ask. So back to our form, put a question in, text, not bothered about the number of characters, name, forget that, and we'll have a default. Well, we're not going to do the defaults. Name of person. We'll show that in bold. I haven't got a license in there, but you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have date. Date of birth.
DOB.
And maybe basically no, single answer. That.
And in the default value, that's where you would also have tokens.
Yeah, that's where I have my
Greater
tokens.
than, greater than, less than. I see, yeah. And you'd substitute whatever you had predefined. I understand.
So, okay. A single answer. So we'll have multiple choice. So we can just see, so you can see where these come in. Oh, sorry there. So we'll have option number 1 would be,
I don't know, married, single, divorced, or something. Oh, sure.
married. Is it double R? Yeah.
Double R, yes.
Married, single.
Widowed, divorced, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to miss some out other, so they don't answer. No. Oh,
Marital status?
status, hallelujah. Yeah. Okay, so we've got, so far so good. We've got, you can set up your
Question.
Okay, so that gives us 1. Blatantly gonna rip a load of this off. Rid of that. You get the idea on this, so
that's yes.
More than enough. Let's get rid of all those. That'll do for a basic
Sure.
Actually, I'm not sure you need that, but we'll leave it in anyway, so you got the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, that gives us some of that. Oh, And we will want under that another one.
Browse
It to be
patients
forms.
or staff or something. Oh.
You probably don't actually need your staff, to be honest. So, but right. So the browse clients can just be a system generated one. So we'll have one in there of Noyantis. You get the idea. Okay, and this in itself won't be exciting, but it's the next bit where you get to, you know, client form header. Complete the forms. That's what we're after. What's that? Form Defi? Form Defi? Oh. In 13. I think it's just the generator. Do you know what? Actually, it's going to change anyway, that. Bill just asked on this, where are you going to post this demo app up? Until I do a full tidy on it, I'll be honest, I will just send it you direct. But then I will put it as part of the, basically, I'll put it on the website under examples and so on and so forth. So, yeah, that's no problem. But I'll just send it direct via Skype to yourself, Paul, and Bill if you're interested, and of course anybody else who's interested. But yeah, if it's going to go with one of our example apps, there's no way it's going out with Clarion generated browsers. Okay, so that's a form, and we're not going to have that because we're going to replace that now with one of our own. So after all that, on the other window, just let me close that, open up our update, which we had earlier, and let's see if we can pinch that update. So we have got update client form, that's the one. And if we have a look at what it calls, yep, got that, brilliant. You know what I've got to do. Okay.
I forget where the setting is where you can change it to just generate for the app to generate the one per module per one procedure per.
Well, I'd also forgot. It does use. It's all right using the HTML editor to let you set up HTML help, but it also uses the suite controls to display that HTML help. So we would have needed that as well. So we've got that. Let's have a quick look. Boom, 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 boom. There's a couple. Let's bring that in. Source, that's good. Lib underscore. So, insert a row. That bit's not going to work. Let's well, hopefully it'll be. We're getting towards the end of this, and hopefully it's a worthwhile exercise for somebody. Plus, we'll have got another example app, not all done, but a good chunk done.
Oh, this is definitely worthwhile. At least for me, it is, Andy.
$14 again. That's going to shout at us.
One's 0 and one's 1.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see.
You know, I'm really tempted to put them in, you know.
You could. It won't take long.
I'm going to because it'll get to me. Now, where were they? I think they're in the data app. That's as good as any. Which means I should really go back to the other one because I think I got them wrong before as well. Oh, it might just be in the menu. The declare equates. Include equates. Latest. Include. Open the equates there. There they are.
I think you have questions is another one you have.
Yeah, I think it was in the setup forms, update form, and I think we got that the wrong way around before. I say we because I'm including you on that.
And I thought you were just being royal.
Questions, hide grid. Okay. Oh no, what's the right way around? Okay. Now Mark won't shout at us either. So in 15. Just show me that. I think was there a lib underscore there? No.
And that's at 14, the top one.
But in 15, yeah, error handler, thought it was. Which is part of our NYSU tools. So basically it can trap the error using the error code and so on and so forth, but then what it would do is it could automatically log it for you if you've got certain flags turned on. I keep meaning to actually think about releasing NYSU tools. Might just come in handy.
Missing an icon, that's easy.
Right, okay, so insert medical form. Well, it's selected a client actually. We're missing something here. But that should be, it gives you the idea. So basically now we have got, go on the name, there's our name of person, person's in bold. We haven't got related information, so we never prompted for it. Got our date, and we've got our status. We didn't give it any default value. So if we change that, so if we said for the status, we didn't do the, we didn't do the merge at all, because I was going to say you could just give it a constant rather than a lookup and so on and so forth. But does that give you enough? And I'll do the tidy up and finish it off, but basically would that give you enough to at least wet your palette, so to speak? Or Bill's yes. Paul?
Yes, that gives me lots to start with. Sorry, I had my microphone off and was chatting away. And
no. So basically you can see we could have, well, let's set up a different one very, very quickly. Form types. So we'll have this as med2. We've only got medical. And we'll say, okay, we'll have it as, we're going to prompt for Q1, the text. We're going to prompt for Q2, the text. We're going to prompt for Q3, and it's a number. And we're going to prompt for Q4, and it's a checkbox. And that's good for that one. And then we might have another one, which would be, what was that last one? Med2, was it?
yes.
Yep, so Med3. And we will just quickly have this one and just show what this would be. So basically the idea would be, it would be column A, text, followed by column B, again text, followed by, I don't know if it's an integer, but it's column C, Okay, so that's, if we went to, oops, do that, now we should be prompting on here for a client. Could really just tell you what we'll do. Very, very, very quickly, client forms. So we should have client filled in for you. So what we'll just do very quickly is just add a drop combo. And that can just be on the client so it knows which client we're referring to. Hey, I thought I just...
Oh, you know, you have to do that 100 times.
Okay. It'll look crap, for want of a better term, but it will be enough to get this to you for today. So you should be able to go, okay, got forms. Yes, we've got a client, Noyantis. And we can go to our first one, and it's a medical. Yep. Or it's the grid, or it's that one. So you can see how fast it's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that will let you in the first one. No, it's not called. We commented it out because it said count the highest number plus 1. So that's why that's not working. We could just rig it by just putting a equals random in there at the moment. But basically, I had a SQL function to say go and get me the highest number plus 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so add a new row. So it's insert row. Okay, you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So for Noyantis, we'll do a property grid. So Andy Wilton, today, married, or Wendy will kill me, and we'll save that. Go to change, it's populated the data. This is the thing, oh, didn't do the date. Well, okay, we'll have to have a look at that, but basically, you can see from that code we had before, we populated the queue with the question, the form in question, but then we also had a look if there's any answers available, and of course those answers are there, so it's populated in automatically for us.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to do the other one, which was I think number 3, you see it's a grid, and we can start saying it uses the property grid to still ask for the questions, A, A2, and 1. But then I can say, okay, I want B, B2, and 2. And then you start seeing, basically, imagine if you had a checklist sheet, which you did every morning, or even our local pub has a thing on the back of the door, which is, the toilets have been cleaned, and you have a check, and a sign by. So this is a type of thing. So it's using the questionnaire type setup, but now you're using it to actually form a chronological grid of records, or using it as one-off questionnaires.
Mm-hmm. I see. That's made me think differently again. Good.
Okay, so yes, that's it needs to tidy up on these screens desperately, but it will be enough to give you food for thought.
No, it gives me lots to go on.
Cool. Well, it's one of our longer meetings, but I think it's definitely been beneficial. And it gets, I will, when I spruce that up, I'll send this over by Skype now. And same with you, Bill. In fact, why don't I open Bill's mic? Sorry, Bill. Quite rude there.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
But yes, basically, I'll zip them up. I'll fire them over on Skype. Anybody else interested, raise your hands or drop me an email. Absolutely no problem. And then I'll polish it up, and it will go. I think I said in recent weeks, I want to build more and more of our examples. But the examples that start showing not that type of thing, but start showing some of our controls working together, so we can see. Let's go back to the other one. We could see that's not built that. I should have built that. Yeah, there's a fault on that code. Let's go to a new one because that's better. But you're starting to see basically the controls starting to come together. So if we go back to that one, we can see HTML viewer. So we can, in our form setup, we can say, okay, it's use an editor to really create some meaningful information for the person filling it in. So you've got that. Then you see in the report control and the property grid working together, throwing a little date picker for the selections. You're starting to see all the controls coming together. And they are 10 years old now, so it's not as though they've not been coming together for ages. It's just, I always like to keep the examples really separate, but it's not the way of the world. People want working examples. So when this is polished up, this will be a working example. Anyone wants to use it, by all means do so.
No, this is brilliant to use again, some British language.
So
yeah, it looks good. It looks real good, Andy. I do a lot of stuff with like pick lists and taking work orders when they start a work order. This would be ideal for that.
Yeah, so perfect. If it just, like Paul said, this will save him a bit of time. So, if it can save you some time, of course you're going to put your own tilt on it and put your own style in there, rename the keys to your own naming convention. But renaming stuff is a hell of a lot easier than thinking of the design and putting it all in there in the first place. So that's the idea behind it.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused. I could see that the property grid would work well, but I just didn't quite understand it enough, and this really helps on seeing some real use for it.
Well, like I say, we had in an older system, we had a designer, just like you saw in this. It had a few other bells and whistles, so to speak, a few other tools, but at the heart of it was similar design. It had your setup and so on and so forth of the forms, and you could link them to categorize them and so on and so forth. But then we could send them over to a pad, and the pad was completely dataless. It weren't linked to the SQL database, so it sent it over in it was XML format. I'd probably use JSON now if I was redoing it, but it would send the actual form across in XML format, so the pad could lose Wi-Fi connectivity and it would just carry on working and so on. And then when it came back into range and they completed it, they pressed send, hey presto, that sent it back to the server as its XML content with the PDF attachment and so on and so forth. The file stored on the server, or copied from the pad to the server, and in the on reception, they could just see that it had just appeared, review it, and say, "That's brilliant. Please go and take your seat," or "Sorry, that's not complete." Pass it back to them, and so on and so forth. So there's things. I mean, this could be. You could put extra settings on the question table. You could put extra settings to say name, it's required. And of course that queue structure, which is part of the class, does have, if I remember rightly, property grid, yes, style required. So you set that to true, and that would force it to be required. So you've got, you could put some extra settings into the question table to say, is this required? Do you want the case? Do you want it to be uppercase only? So on and so forth. All you've got to do is just put the entries in the queue, and you've got it all painted for you. All the work's done.
Excellent.
So, okay. Well, on that, I think at 2 hours 17. I think we'll call it a wrap. I'll quickly tidy the function, tidy the folder, zip it up, fire it across to you guys, and then until next week.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Andy.
No problem whatsoever. Thank you very much. Cheers for attending.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.